Hey everyone, welcome to our Indigenous celebration here at Upward Bound. Today you're going to find me with Haley Henscheid. She is Omaha, and she is here to share with us her experience of being a Native American and going to college and what it was like for her to get to where she's at today. Thank you for being with me, Haley.
Thanks for having me, Victor.
Yeah, of course. And before we get started, I'd like for you to share your pronouns, please.
My pronouns are she, her, and hers.
Thank you. And I would like to do a land acknowledgement for the region that Western Iowa Tech serves, and I'd like to honor those people in our history here today. So TRIA Upward Bound at Western Iowa Tech Community College services middle and high school students throughout Northwest Iowa and Northeastern Nebraska. The mission of the Upward Bound program is to provide access to higher education to those students with economic and generational barriers. To achieve our mission, we must honor, protect, celebrate, and acknowledge the stolen land that we are on and the community members who are native to these lands, which is why I will acknowledge the peoples who are indigenous to this land and the tribes and nations who were displaced and moved to reservations near us today. Current reservations within the Western Iowa Tech Community College service area are the Omaha Reservation, the Ponca Trust Land, and the Winnebago Reservation and off-reservation trust land. Within the Siouxland community, Sloan, Whiting, Ottawa, the land with sessions 410, 315, and 151, we have the Ocheti Chickahominy, the Great Sioux Nation, the Yankton Reservation, the Omaha Reservation, and the Ho-Chunk Reservation. Within Hinton, Lawton, and Cherokee, Iowa, the sessions 151 and 265, we have the Ocheti Chickahominy and the Yankton Reservation. In Denison, Iowa, with the land sessions 151 and 265, we have the Ocheti Sakowin, Iowa, and the Yankton. And the Iowa today are in what is now known as Oklahoma, but the Iowa are from here, which is where Iowa, the state, gets its name from. And Homer, Nebraska, with the land sessions of 315, the Ocheti Sakowin, and the Omaha, a reservation as well. So we would like to respect those people, and I'd like to engage in this conversation with you about the importance of recognizing indigeneity within our region and within our culture today. Thank you for being with me, Haley. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to talk to you and to have a little Native American Heritage Month celebration.
Yeah, and so I guess just to start off, so where are you from, and where did you go to school?
Yeah, so I grew up in both eastern Nebraska and western Iowa. So my mom was born and raised in Macy, Nebraska on the Omaha Indian Reservation, and my dad is from near Harlan, Iowa, so a small community in western Iowa. And so I was raised in both places. So I grew up for most of my life in Walt Hill, Nebraska on the Omaha Indian Reservation. And I went to school in Winnebago, Nebraska, and have family around, the area. So that's kind of where I was raised. And then in high school, I ended up graduating from Harlan, Iowa, Harlan Community High School, and then going to the University of Iowa from there.
Awesome. That's a lot of places, and I feel like it made your transition probably interesting to Iowa, huh? Going from a predominantly indigenous background, right, to Iowa, which is a predominantly white institution.
Yeah, definitely. And that is something that, their identity is obviously a super, interesting and kind of difficult topic. But my dad is white and my mom is Indian. And so on the reservation, everyone knew, in a small town that my dad was white. And so I guess I was, I'm not full native, within those spaces. And then going from that to going to a very white town, very white space, and being one of, very few brown or black students there. And so kind of like finding your way and kind of, not being able to fit in either area is hard. But for me, I think that made me more flexible. And I think it made me me, I guess maybe try harder to fit in into spaces, no matter what that space was, because I kind of knew that no matter what, I was going to be, somewhat of an outsider. And so for me, kind of moving around and being around different cultures, like I mentioned, my dad being white, my mom being Native, my half brother is Mexican. So even being from what is considered Iowa, not a diverse place, I really did have a pretty diverse upbringing for, being from these small places, which are usually considered very white.
Yeah, and I mean that's what biculturalism is, right? Having to like balance, it's like a balancing act, right? Between two cultures, two communities, and even three, right? With your brother being Latinx as well. So I think it's interesting how you kind of really grow up thinking critically, I feel like, having these different identities. And that's a good skill set that you can take with you to school.
Definitely.
So what did you study at the University of Iowa, and why?
That's a good question. I studied business management, and I also majored in Spanish. And then I added an international business certificate to that with a focus in Latin America. And I actually hadn't thought about this until going through the Fulbright process, which we kind of went through together. And I was like, why did I want to study business? Like, I was very steadfast. I was like, oh, I'm going to go to business school. And I actually never wavered, which is sometimes surprising, even to myself. I'm like, why did I stick with it? But not until I realized, and I was thinking, and I was like, in high school, I watched my mom create two small businesses. She had a restaurant and she also had a consignment store. And I think just naturally watching her work and watching her career, I think just naturally I knew that that is something that I wanted to do. And then I studied Spanish in high school. I got a very great opportunity to study in Mexico the summer before my senior year of high school. And so I definitely just wanted to continue speaking the language and hopefully being able to travel through that and continue learning that. And then I added the international business certificate since I had studied abroad, and I really only had to take a few extra courses to add that certificate. So I kind of just threw that in there. But management was pretty broad, and it was difficult. There are a lot of, that is another predominantly white space, even within a predominantly white institution, is the business school. There are a lot of, it's usually men, it's a lot of white men. And so that was a pretty difficult, I guess, school to be in, and just kind of questioning what my role was to be in there. And I think one of the reasons I actually stayed with it is because I wanted to prove something, and I wanted to prove that I belonged in that space just as much, if not more, than every other person in that school. And yeah, it was pretty much just broad enough that I knew that I could, management belongs everywhere. Obviously, business and corporations is something that I kind of questioned if that's what I wanted to go into. But business does help people, and business is needed for people to help other people as well.
And obviously, management is something that's still very big in your life because right now you're the manager of Belo USA Travel, where you work with high school students and internationally, and you bring them to the US, right? Could you tell us a little bit about what you do in your position?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had no idea that as soon as I got out of management school that I would become a manager. But that just happened, and it was a really unique experience. We're a very small company here in Chicago. We have usually 5 full-time employees, and really my skills and courses that I learned from school were super transferable to my position of kind of just picking things up and learning and working with people. And so what our company does is we plan tours for international high school students who are studying in the United States. So we visit Hawaii, we visit California, we visit New York, kind of all of those, fun and exciting places that people who visit the U.S. Want to see while they're here. And yeah, it's been a really great experience. We service international students from all over the world. We've, worked with students from over 60 different countries, lots of different languages and diverse backgrounds. And so working in study abroad at the University of Iowa and having studied abroad myself, it kind of was really cool that all of my interests of business and international studies and all of that came together in this position.
Yeah, and I even bet even your Spanish studies have really come in and helped you in the long run here too. You know, bilingualism goes far. And I feel like you're even multilingual yourself, right? Having experiences in all these different languages, especially your native languages as well, right?
Yeah, so coming into this, my boss ended up being Brazilian who spoke Portuguese, and I did not speak Portuguese. However, um, my Spanish language skills really helped me. It was definitely transferable, and even just being able to actually take these international business courses and learn intercultural competency to have a boss who was from Brazil, because I had really only worked with Americans, and so we do have different working styles. I mean, and so taking a company that started in Brazil and
Wow.
transferring it to the United States, like, there are lots of different cultural and, business cultural differences that were interesting, and that I was actually glad that I could kind of help kind of apply, the different skill set of what I had learned. And yeah, I love working with students from all over the world. Sometimes they don't know I speak Spanish, and so I hear the Spanish kids speaking, and I'll surprise them, getting in there. Yeah, no, they're a really great group to work with.
No, that's really cool. And honestly, like international like workplaces are so unique and a definitely learning experience. I mean, when I was in Mexico, I learned a lot, right? And it's good that you had that preparation already in your undergrad. Um, well, taking us back to Iowa, you were part of the Native American Student Association, NASA. Can you tell us about your experience in that organization?
Definitely. So as I mentioned, growing up, I grew up on the reservation, and then in my high school years, I was more so in Iowa. Obviously, visiting. My parents were still, living and working on the reservation as well.
Mhm.
And so going to Iowa was. I loved my experience there. I really enjoyed everything. And I kind of, the first year I was just getting to know myself. I was getting to know the school. And then after that, I kind of feel like I was missing something. And I started to join with the Native American Student Association and get involved there. And I think it's something that I hadn't realized that I was missing from being on the reservation, is being surrounded by my people and being surrounded by people who have just a really shared understanding and even a shared sense of humor, and even a shared, we don't share a same language, but sometimes similar dialects and different words and things like that. And so it's something that made me feel a lot more comfortable on campus. And then I became the president of the Native American Student Association, and basically tried to get people involved who were interested, and people who were involved in creating visibility on campus. And I think that is a huge issue that natives face in the United States, is visibility. And so, getting people involved, getting people curious, and also getting students who lived near Iowa City, native students. We're so close to the Sac and Fox and the Meskwaki Nation, and getting those students interested in coming on campus as well. And so we kind of just wanted to create, a stronger organization, so that students who come in the future know that they have that, and that they have faculty and they have staff. We may be small, our meetings were sometimes 3-4 people, but we were mighty in that, we knew that we needed each other in order to get through university at, a very white institution in a very white state. And it definitely helps having that community.
Yeah, and something I recall from a different interview with Cristobal is he's indigenous to Guatemala, what is now Guatemala, and he went to University of South Dakota and he found a home at the Native Cultural Center there. And I think that's so cool how indigeneity just is so expansive in that you can really feel at home with other people of similar backgrounds. And I think that's so important in college. You really find that solidarity. And I love that you did that and you even like led it. You the leadership that you showed. And I mean, it shows today because you mentioned earlier that it's a much bigger organization. There's a lot more people invested in the Native American Student Association, and I love that. Thank you for all your work, Haley.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I look like at what they're doing now, and I see it's a lot bigger. My senior year of college, so I graduated in 2017, but in the fall of 2016 is when the Standing Rock protest
Mhm,
happened in North Dakota. And a few friends and I went to Standing Rock, and I do think that was a pivotal moment in
mhm,
Indigenous rights and solidarity, and a
mhm,
time where I have never seen so many natives and non-natives together and in
mhm,
one space. And so just in the last, 4 years and seeing where the movement, not only on college campuses, but also, within the United States and within the world, people
mhm,
people heard about Standing Rock.
mhm,
And so just kind of the reclamation of Indigenous rights and that visibility for us. So after leaving college and being in kind of the real world, it's been really cool to be able to talk to people about that. And that's actually one reason why, I enjoy traveling so much, is that I do feel like an ambassador for my people, my Omaha people, as well as Indigenous people around the world, um, to have them recognize that we're here, we're still
yeah.
fighting, and that our struggles, no matter where we come from, Indigenous people struggles are very similar.
One question to wrap up this conversation is if you could give one piece of advice to aspiring Native American college students, what is one piece of advice you'd like them to take away?
I think kind of what I mentioned is finding your people where you go to school. I think that it is something that's important for people to look into, for students when they decide on the school. What kind of community will they have while they're there? Because, very unfortunately, I did see several friends of mine who needed that family, and needed that community, and, that they didn't find that and decided to not continue their college career because of that. And so I would say, you know, looking for that community, finding that community when you go to school. And if it's not there, creating that community, I think is going to be super important for you. And, Victor and he was part of my network, part of my community at school. And, there were a lot of really amazing Black and Brown students doing very good things. And I just feel, again, so happy and so prideful of meeting those people. And I don't think I would have been as successful, and I don't think I would
Mhm,
have been as yeah, I guess involved had I not found that community. So for those students, just remembering to find your people, and we're doing it for our people. Like I said, we are ambassadors, and we do. Whether we like it or not, we're ambassadors for our community. We're ambassadors of being, whether it's your tribe, your nation, or just being Native American in general, that it's really important for us to go out there and for us to get our education. And because there's little ones looking up to us, and our elders are looking, down at us, and thanking us for our work. So just always remember your ancestors, always remember your little cousins and nieces and nephews who you're doing it for, and just find that community when you're at school.
yeah, and that community exists, and if not, create it. I love that. Because you have to be the trailblazer, you know? And thank you for all of your words of encouragement and all of your answers. I know my students are going to take a lot away from your insight. But thank you for your time today, Haley.
Thank you so much, Victor. It's so great to see you. And I'm so excited
Yeah,
for all of your
likewise.
students to, trailblaze and continue doing great things outside of Western Iowa and Eastern Nebraska, because we are, as you can see, a strong force. We're all doing great things. And,
Mhm.
we're excited for the next generation to go to school and continue doing and piggybacking off of all the work that we have done.
For sure. We're looking at y'all, okay?
We see y'all.
Thank you, Haley.